I'll start with you, Liam.
Yeah.
What do you make of tonight's result?
Well, first of all, you have to give all credit to Frank Lampard and a Derby team that, by the way, made no changes for the game, unlike a lot of other teams in this competition. They deserved it. I don't think it deserved to go down to penalties. I thought Derby were the better side on the night, and it's indicative of all of the problems that seem to be surfacing at Manchester United at the moment. And me being a Manchester United fan, it hurts me more than most, because regardless of the amount of changes that Jose Mourinho made tonight, you expect a Manchester United team at home to a championship side to go out and win the game, and win the game comfortably. And at the moment, the recipe and the ingredients and the way that they're playing, I don't see a way of playing there. I see a team that's wide open without the ball. I see a team that's disjointed with the ball. And it doesn't seem to matter the personnel of players. They've got some world-class players throughout that squad. At the moment, they're not performing. And yes, you can look at them, but you also have to look at the way the team have been playing for a long period of time now.
He made 9 changes, but were the players out there tonight, in your opinion, easily good enough to have seen off Derby tonight? And that's not being disrespectful to Derby.
No disrespect to Derby at all, and I think Frank Lampard would be the first person to admit that they would be complete underdogs tonight. When you're Manchester United, you need a squad of 20, 25 top class players, which they have. You look at the individuals, the performances that Romelu Lukaku made in the World Cup. He started the game tonight. Didn't see his form anywhere near what it should be. You see likes of Alexis Sanchez, Paul Pogba not in the squad today. And I just see a team at the moment and a squad at a problem. There seems to be something not right throughout that football club, and they need to change it sooner rather than later if they're to be pushing for the titles and trophies that a club of Manchester United's stature deserves.
Jason, what did you make of tonight?
You know, what's interesting listening to what's been said so far is how close it came to being a good news story from Man United's perspective in this game. Fellaini scores that goal, they come back into it, suddenly the players are playing for Jose again, suddenly we're seeing good performances from Fellaini, etc., Lukaku, and then they lose on penalties, so the narrative is now, well, they're not good enough. When really, had they won on penalties now, we would have been speaking about the fact that they kept themselves in a game with 10 men after having the goalkeeper sent off, and actually they went and won the penalty shootout. So there's such fine margins at the moment. There's no doubt that the style of football is not what we expect from Man United, and that's where I think Jose Mourinho deserves some criticism. But if you look at the team that was out there, you would say that that's a team good enough to win. Without the sending off, I think they were outplayed by Derby, and you would say Derby deserved it, but Man United were not that far away from winning this game and turning this into something which is a positive.
Yeah, I think you're right. In terms of fine margins, that's football. Football's fine margins, and when you're a manager of a group of really talented individuals, you need to make those gaps bigger. That you watch, if you see a Manchester City team play Derby today at home, or a Liverpool team, or even a Chelsea team at the moment, you don't see the same level of performance that Manchester United have given tonight, because those players are playing within a structure and a system and an organisation that I don't see from a Manchester United team, regardless of whether it's a starting 11 against Wolves, who performed in the same way, or maybe a fringe 11 tonight that get knocked out by a Derby team who have done OK in the Championship. They're not running away with the Championship at the moment, and Frank would be the first person to admit that.
That's a fair point, but also, last season, Man United came second, and Jose Mourinho says, if I'm having a bad time, what about everybody else? They must be having a really hard time. He comes into this season, they've not started very well. He's won trophies previously at Man United. So I would say, yes, is the performance level what we expect from Man United? Is it the attacking, flowing football that we expect at Old Trafford? No. But if you're Jose Mourinho, he's saying, I came second last year to a fantastic Man City team. I've won titles at Man United with a team that hadn't been performing well under Moyes, hadn't been performing well under Van Gaal. So, yes, I think there was a case for him to say, I have done enough in my career and I've won enough to be given a little bit more benefit of the doubt, albeit the style not being what Man United expected, but it's Mourinho's style, which is not traditionally a Man United style of play.
How much, I don't know, damage is the right word, but how much does it disrupt things when you make 9 changes to a team?
Of course it does, and that's the benefit that Derby had today, in terms of they play with the same 11 that have been playing probably 8 games of a Championship season. So those players are up to match fitness, they're match sharp, they've got good chemistry, they understand each other's games. And when you go in with 9 changes in a Manchester United team, it's a huge disruption. But in saying that, that's why you want to be a Manchester United player. We wanted to play at the highest level, have those pressures. The pressures of playing at the big clubs, whether you're a starting 11 player within the squad, is to win football matches. And at the moment, I'm seeing a Manchester United team. And the thing that's really important for me is, to gain results, you need performance. You can't go through games, not perform at the levels expected and get away with it. Had they won tonight on penalties or had they won in over 90 minutes with the same performance levels, they're getting away with not reaching the potential that they've got. And yes, you have to point fingers at the players, but it comes down to the structure, organisation, which I don't see in comparison to Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City and Liverpool at the moment.
Would you be even more alarmed then if you're Jose Mourinho, Jason, following what from Liam just said there? In his programme notes tonight, he said it's not acceptable for players to give 90 or 95% when others are giving 101%. He's clearly digging out players who he doesn't think are putting a proper shift in.
He is, and I think as manager, he's right to do that. The one thing that is unacceptable is effort levels. And I think that, you know, it's very easy to look at the lack of effort or the lack of influence from players when things aren't going well. But I think if you're a manager and you're looking at your team and saying, are they giving me everything, win, lose or draw? You can take that, you can go away and work with it. I think what he's seeing and what he's alluding to there quite significantly is I'm seeing players in my team not give everything to fight, for their teammates, for the win. And I think that is a huge concern, even more concerning than a loss, because you can lose and you can turn that around and next week there's another game. But if you've got players who aren't buying into the cohesiveness of the squad, that can be toxic from within the dressing room.
Why would it be the case then that players are not putting in 100%?
You know, it's one of the easiest things to throw at players sometimes. You know, some players are out of form. You know, and as a professional, whether you're playing for Manchester United at the top of the trade or you're playing in a Vauxhall Conference or wherever you're playing, the minimum requirement is that you put 100% effort in as a professional footballer. But for me, I think when you organise a team, I come back to organisation, I come back to identity of way of playing, which I don't see from a Manchester United team at the moment. It makes it easier for players. You watch Manchester United, the chemistry, the work on the training ground that they put in terms of their movement of the ball, their transitions and then being able to press from good positions. I see a Manchester United team that are wide apart. And when you're wide apart, it makes it seem... So when I talk about distances between players, when the distances are bigger, it looks sometimes like players aren't given 100% because they haven't got cover. And I see defenders making mistakes. I don't see defenders in the right position behind them to cover or goalkeepers in positions to cover them. That comes from structure and organisation. And Jose Mourinho is an outstanding manager through his career. Through years gone by, he's won trophy after trophy after trophy, and I respect him highly. But at the moment, even he has to be one of the first people to admit he's not getting the best out of those players, he's not getting the best out of that squad, and that needs to change in order for them to get back where they should be.
Given that the amount of changes made tonight by Jose Mourinho, that clearly underlines where this particular trophy lies in terms of his priorities. So how damaging, or is it not at all, this defeat tonight?
I think it's damaging to take on the point that the real worry is, of course, we know how good Jose Mourinho is. And I won't believe for 1 minute that he won't give them a clear plan about the way that he wants them to play. But I think the worry is when they're going into the game, they're not committing to that plan. They're not committing to ensuring that the distances are correct, as you said, ensuring to making sure they don't concede goals and that they attack together and that they release players forward. And I think that's the real worry, that you can make 9 changes, still bring in and have players the likes of Lukaku, Martial, Fellaini, these quality of players on the pitch, and not get the performance level you would have expected. And as I said earlier, the narrative could have been very different had they won that penalty shootout. But in reality, to your point, the performance level wouldn't have been any different. And that, in my opinion, comes down to the players not buying into the manager's message. Now, when I was in the dressing room, sometimes the message from the manager, we would all buy into it and 100% commit to it. And sometimes, maybe through confidence, maybe through a not good relationship between the manager and the players, you don't 100% buy into it. And I think that's what we're seeing with Man United currently.
Well, you mentioned maybe not a good relationship. Earlier on this afternoon, reports started to surface that at a team meeting today, Jose Mourinho said in front of the entire squad, he will never make Paul Pogba captain once again. Now, this hasn't been confirmed because Jose didn't speak about it before the game. So hopefully before this programme is out, we'll get this confirmed one way or the other. But they are more than rumours. I'm told they're by reliable sources as a reaction to Paul Pogba's comments.
Yeah, and this goes back to, you need synergy without a football club. You need synergy on the pitch. You talk about distances between players. You need synergy off the pitch. You need everyone to believe in the manager's message. And again, this is another fact that things aren't right behind the scenes at Manchester United. And when things aren't right in the dressing room or things aren't right in relationships between managers and coaches and players, you get performances like you've seen this evening. So in terms of Paul Pogba, for me, the last time I was on the show with you, we were debating about him. He seems to be a recurring theme at the moment. And I'm looking at it from the outside. I'm thinking, as a manager or a coach, is Paul Pogba doing enough? I saw him be outstanding at the World Cup. I saw him absolutely outstanding. And that must be an even bigger frustration for Jose Mourinho, that he can play with that discipline and those high standards and be a leader within one team, you know, the French national team, and not provide that for his side.
Let's break this down, this story, because the quotes that allegedly have angered Jose Mourinho are these, which are after the Wolves game at the weekend, when Paul Pogba said exactly this. He said, when we're at home, we should attack, attack, attack. That's Old Trafford. We are here to attack. Followed by, when he was asked, well, why don't you then? He said, I can't tell you because I'm a player. It's not me. I'm not the manager. I cannot say that. Obviously, we should show more options of playing, but I cannot say that because I'm a player.
There's no doubt in my mind that those are unacceptable comments to make after a game. Yes, we've been in the moment. Yes, we've all wanted to say things after a game. But I think as a player of that profile, playing for Man United, being captain, as he has been several occasions, knowing the profile of yourself and the club, you should know better than to say that. You know that's going to hit the newspapers. You know that we're going to be having a debate about these words. But as interesting as well is the source that says what Mourinho says in a private meeting to players. Lots of things are said between players, between clubs, and the fact that comes out means that you've got Pogba saying one thing, you've got the club briefing from another side, because we've all heard when stories are leaked from clubs or from players, and that's when that whole media starts to get engaged in what should be dealt with in the dressing room. We've all had tough conversations in that dressing room, and it shouldn't necessarily be coming out in the way Pogba's spoken about it and the way it's come out of Man United also.
How much you can't say premeditated, because obviously it was after the result, but two things. First of all, Paul Pogba knows quite clearly what the ramifications of those sorts of quotes will be.
Yeah.
Bear in mind what's happened previously.
I don't see it as a shock. I see Paul Pogba straight after the World Cup linked with Barcelona. I've seen him linked this week with going back to Juventus. There's something not right within that football club. Now, is it his agent? You know his agent, Mino Raiola's a very outspoken individual. And if he sees a deal that could be made for his player that may be better than the deal he's on now, is he influencing Paul Pogba to say these things to cause problems to get what he wants out of it? You don't know. There's so many different things that come into a player's decision-making.
Bear in mind how intelligent that lad is. Does he not know exactly what he's doing there?
Well, possibly. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it is premeditated. If you're agitating for a move or for a better contract and you think, hang on a minute, I'm in a position of strength. I've just won a World Cup. My profile's at its biggest it's ever going to be, and I'm seeing a manager that maybe I don't get on with, maybe he's under pressure, now's the time to say something. And I think that's why Jose Mourinho will deal with it. If he has said that, and he has...
He's definitely said that.
I understand.
Definitely said that.
No, I'm talking about Mourinho saying to Pogba about his captaincy. Would Alex Ferguson have stood for that in years gone by? Absolutely no chance, because the most important thing at any football club is the team. And for me, no matter how much of a talented player Paul Pogba is, I couldn't lace his boots in terms of talent. What I see as a coach is a player that contributes to the disjointed play, contributes to their lack of discipline with and without the ball. And as someone, if I'm Jose Mourinho now, is a player that I can't trust, not only on the pitch, but off the pitch as well.
Just one thing, Jason. Bear in mind, this is the player who gave the ball away for the equalising goal.
And that's what makes it even more jarring, in that it was him giving it away which allowed the attack to spring up. And then the attitude in getting back, was it as forceful as it could have been? Was it as intense as it could have been to get back and win the ball back after making a mistake? I really don't think it's a shock that the subject he's talking about is attacking, because I think he feels a bit shackled. I think he feels like he's not been able to express himself the way he would like. I think he feels that the team is being shackled, and that may be the case, but that's the Jose Mourinho way. That's the way the manager has set them out to go out and win a game. And I think if Pogba is agitating for a move, he's doing a fantastic job of moving the goalpost to a position where it becomes untenable for him to be there anymore. And look, players are clever. Players know what needs to be done in the media, what needs to be done behind the scenes to create a situation where they need to move on. And I'm not saying that he's doing that. I'm just saying that from the things we're seeing from his side and also from Man United, it seems that the relationship is getting to a point where it's untenable.
But also as well, when you look at the scenario, you would have thought that it'd perhaps be a little more... This is a little bit more delicate, a little bit more careful. Bear in mind what's happened recently. As if to say, well, hang on, I've got to get this going again.
You would, but then you come down to trusting someone as a player, trusting someone as a leader, and there are characteristics that you see in players. That's true leadership. Is saying, do you know, I hold my hands up. I shouldn't have given the ball away. Okay, maybe there are things going on. Maybe there are tactical things that we could do better. And not saying it in the press and keeping it within the dressing room and taking responsibility. That's a huge part of leadership, and that's why I come back to his performances for France, because I see Paul Pogba in the World Cup track runners, stop crosses, do all the horrible defensive side of the game to help his team win a World Cup, help his country win a World Cup. And he should rightly be proud of his performances and his part in that. But I see a completely different player playing for Manchester United.
I mean, it doesn't take away the headlines because it's the bulk of what he said. In fairness to Paul Pogba, he said, look, I know I gave the ball away. He did concede that, but old school, you just, when you're at fault, you just don't go out and say those sorts of things. What I'm interested from both of you is, how do you think the Manchester United dressing room will react to his comments?
You know, that's really hard to say because you're never quite sure. I mean, we can perceive Paul Pogba to be one way, and he could have absolutely gone straight into that dressing room and said, sorry guys, that's absolutely my fault. And as teammates, you accept that. We've all made mistakes. We've all had to hold our hands up and say that things are wrong and that you've been the culprit. And I think that's clear. But in regards to the dressing room, the one thing you can tally it against is the performances. And what you're seeing from the performances, and not just the wins and the losses, is the fact that they're not executing a plan put in place by the manager. And I think when you've seen that with Jose Mourinho in the past, it hasn't taken long from that position to move to a point of him having to leave the football club, because he seems to be quite a confrontational character. He seems to be someone who wants to dominate the dressing room and ensure that he's the loudest voice and the biggest, the biggest attitude, the biggest ego. And I think when that comes to a point where he's not seeing people buy into his philosophy, his work, because he absolutely knows what he's doing, then I think he reacts, as we've seen previously, quite negatively. And I think you add those two things together, plus Man United expecting them to be an attacking team, I think there's some problems there.
I see a team of players who aren't happy playing the way they're playing. I'll be honest, I see, and I'll relate this to the other top teams in this league at the moment. Chelsea, Sarri comes in, how long has he been there? 3 months. Clear way of playing with and without the ball. Pep Guardiola, clear way of playing. Pochettino, even at Tottenham, even though they've gone through difficult times, he always reverts to his way of playing. With Jose's Manchester United team, sometimes they're smashing the ball up to Fellaini in the last 10 minutes, sometimes they're trying to play out from the back. I don't see a fundamental way of playing. And when you don't have a fundamental way of playing with and without the ball, you become a worse team against these teams who can always come back to a structure. And I'm seeing players who are nowhere near their potential at the moment and are probably looking across at the other side of Manchester and seeing the performances they're putting in, and they're showing their frustrations in a way that's not healthy for that squad at the moment.
But to your point, you mentioned Jurgen Klopp there. Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp haven't won anything. Sarri, I know he's only just come in. Of course, Man City, you can say a great philosophy, a great style, and, you know, has won numerous things. Mourinho has won at Man United.
But if you're looking at now, and you're putting Manchester United up against those three clubs that are in a much better place. I'm looking at the here and now.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, you can talk about what's happened in the past, but if you're looking at the positions that those four clubs are in, Manchester United are by far at the moment, they're miles away.
Seventh is unacceptable for Man United, but Mourinho will say, last season, I came second. We're not that far into this season. Let's look at the end of the season, of course, if it's seventh. At the end of the season, absolutely unacceptable, but we're talking about it from a benchmark position of Man United coming second last season above a Jurgen Klopp who has a structure and a style and a philosophy, and other managers who would maybe say, you know, we play this great free-flowing football, but Mourinho still came second, and I think that's something to bear in mind.
Before this happened, as I say, you know, we're live, so he hasn't actually spoken about it as yet, but is this just building up even more two people who's going to blink first? And who wins?
From my point of view, if I was in Jose Mourinho's shoes, I would look to sell him, and it's going to be really interesting to see who the club support, who's got the support behind the scenes of that football club, because we've seen in terms of the transfer window, Jose's frustration in not bringing in a centre half directed at Ed Woodward. So now I think it's going to be a clear show. Ed Woodward's going to have to show his cards. Who is he backing? Is he backing a player in Pogba who's a huge profile, who they use in marketing hugely, or are they going to back the man that, for me, should always be backed, which is the manager?
OK, well, I think we can now hear from Jose Mourinho, who was asked tonight about a falling out.
A lot of rumours today about a possible fallout between you and Paul Pogba. Is there any truth in that?
No. The only truth is that I made the decision of Paul not to be the second captain anymore, but no fallout, no problems at all. The same person that decides that Paul is not the second captain anymore was exactly the same person that decides that Paul was the second captain, myself. I'm the manager, I can make these decisions. No fallout at all, no problems at all, just one decision that I don't have to explain.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Well, so no fallout, but he's no longer vice-captain.
Yeah, but...
So Antonio Valencia is the club captain.
Yeah.
So if he's no longer vice-captain, he's never going to be the captain again.
He's never going to be the captain again. You can read between the lines quite easily there.
What did you read?
I read he's not ever going to captain a football club again. And I understand his decision. I think you have to make these decisions, and you go back to... A player can never be bigger than the manager of a football club. And when a player is speaking so candidly about we need to attack, we need to play in a certain way, you're questioning the manager's way of working. And that creates not only problems between those two, it also creates an atmosphere within the first team dressing room, if it's not dealt with, that other players will start sticking their head above the parapet and saying, hang on, mate, I don't agree with the manager either. So you lose your power. And the last thing you can do as a manager is lose your power and control of a dressing room.
Do you think Jose's actually been very, very clever there? Said, no dramas, no problem. He's just not going to be captain anymore.
Well, it was interesting because he could have said no dramas and left it just there. The fact he reiterated the point that he will never be captain again, he's not vice-captain anymore. I would suggest that that's probably happened in this season 4 or 5 times at different clubs, that the manager decided that one player won't be vice-captain anymore. It's not necessarily having to be played out across the media. So there's obviously a reason why he's doing it. And I think you're absolutely right. That is about showing I'm still the boss. Pogba can go out and say we should be, having a different style, talk about a philosophy of attack, buy into a different narrative. But at the end of the day, I'm the manager and my power is stronger than yours. So I will take the vice-captaincy away from you. I will not play you in the next game. And I will show the dressing room that regardless of what you would want, you're going to buy into my philosophy. The only problem he has is when the dressing room turn against you and don't do it collectively, you find yourself in an issue. And I think Jose Mourinho has seen that in the past.
Is that where he is now?
He's in it. I think this is probably the biggest challenge for Jose Mourinho in his career, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it pans out. For me, people always say about the 3rd season with Jose, I've hugely respect his career as a manager. I would like him to really show people that when things get difficult, he doesn't go away from it and he can turn things around. But in order to do that, you have to make key decisions, and maybe decisions other people don't like. And for me, the first decision for me right now, if I'm in his shoes, is maybe it's time for Paul Pogba to find another football club.